Hey fellas, hope you guys doing great. In today's video we will see, what if Naruto got exiled and became Bael Phenex in DxD, Part 1. Huge shout out to Alienware64. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe and like the video. So let's start the story. Lilith, the current capital of the Satan territory, was one of the most active cities in the underworld. Like the human world, it resembled a normal place, filled with houses, parks, inhabitants, and unlike Earth, a purple sky with black clouds. However, despite what most would think about the weird skies, the rarest thing was that the population consisted on devils. Most of them used their strength for bad purposes, such as raping innocent humans, killing them, or even to fight against other demons. That happened more often in the past. Many were hungry for more power, and eventually, that led to a civil war between two factions of devils, the old Satan faction and the anti-Satan faction. They had different thoughts of government after the Great War ended, and while the first faction wanted to continue the war, the second one just desired peace. Due to that, a civil war forced its way to rise between the weakened devils. This conflict lasted for almost a decade until 5 demons from different families all stood together and defeated the old faction. One of them was the older brother of the current leader of the Phenex clan, Bael Phenex. His power was unbelievable. He had almost the same level than Surzex Gremory, and, thanks to him and the other leaders of the anti-Satan faction, they managed to defeat their opponents without much trouble. Peace was finally set after years of war, and the underworld flowed with life again. However, it didn't last more than a few months. Bael Phenex was considered one of the most powerful devils in the whole underworld. Yet, despite his great power, he didn't use them for evil purposes. Instead, he preferred to be a calmer guy. Strong and peaceful, such ideal of devil was envied by his best friend Surzex, who thought of Minato to be a perfect devil. Such a mistake of thoughts was understandable for someone who ignored some acts that Minato committed in the past. And the worst of them caused his later exile from the underworld. He slept with Lord Bael's sister, Kushina Bael. In the past, every devil was prohibited from touching that woman, or even looking at her. She wasn't allowed to leave the Bael's territory due to her enormous power and beauty, because she was a threat for any clan heir who wanted to marry her. Minato, also one of the most desired men in the underworld, managed to conquer her heart. They met each other in secret, and, in one of their encounters, the fruit of their love transformed into a baby. But unfortunately for them, Lord Bael eventually found out about their meetings. Now, if only the ruler of the Bael clan had been the one to prohibit her about that, the consequences wouldn't have been so terrible. The problem was that the new 4 great Satans supported him in his previous decision. For that reason, Minato had broken the law. Despite that Surzex was his best friend, the only thing he could do was to convince his companions to save Minato and put him in an eternal exile to another dimension. The Phenex leader accepted his punishment and left the underworld, letting his younger brother to take the place of head of the clan. Obviously, Lord Bael wasn't satisfied, and he wanted more payback for the crime committed to his sister. In an act of extreme cruelty, he asked that Naruto Kushina's unborn son had to be killed. And thanks to his clan's position as the most important, he almost got away with it. Surzex Lucifer, honoring his friendship with Minato and Kushina's and the Phenex clan's petitions, managed to convince the other leaders to give the boy an opportunity. However, Kushina's brother asked for a temporal exile as well, and the council couldn't refuse to it. The 4 great Satans decided that Naruto Bael Phenex had to be exiled to the same dimension than his father when he turned 5 years. The legend of the Bael child. Naruto! Come here, honey! The sweet and melodic voice of his mother interrupted his fun with a dandelion flower. Smiling, the little boy stood up from the ground and ran to his mom. His little hand carried on the same flower from before. It didn't take him more than 2 seconds to reach her. His short arms extended quickly to give Kushina a warm hug. "Cousin!" he shouted, breaking the hug in a moment to show her the flower. "Look! It's for you!" She smiled gently, her beautiful face softened deeply. "Why, thank you very much. It's really beautiful." The boy looked in joy as his mother took the dandelion and placed it on her red hair. Her beauty seemed to be highlighted by the new flower in her long and bright hair, and Naruto couldn't stop looking at her. Kushina Bael was one of the most beautiful devils in the underworld. Her slender but feminine build was a definite plus for her. She had fair skin, pretty violet eyes, fiery red hair with strands that framed both sides of her face, and a black clip that parts her hair to the left, keeping it out of her eyes. She wore a high-collared, long-sleeved black blouse with its zip starting on the top and finishing just above her cleavage. However, the blouse only reached to her upper back, leaving only a blue shirt to compensate it. Also, she wore black pants and black shoes along with the symbol of the Bael clan on her chest. He was a little boy, after all, and didn't know why most men called his mother beautiful. Not that he had any concept of beauty. "Hey Naruto-tan! I'm talking to you!" The new voice broke him out of his daze. Tilting his head to the side, his blue eyes noticed the figure of his godfather standing next to his mother. "Surzex Sajizin!" Surzex Lucifer laughed at his nephew's sudden excitement, his hands reaching his blonde hair to make it more messy. "It's been a while, hasn't it? But look at you, you're more taller than the other day." Naruto grinned with happiness, his perfectly white dentures shining with the daylight. "Heh, someday I'll be taller enough to take your place." There was amusement in both Kushina's and Surzex's faces. "Oh? But that's exactly what Rias-chan wants." "Who's Rias?" the boy asked, looking at his mother in disbelief. The man retired his hand from Naruto's hair, his eyes closing in thought. Kushina put a hand on her son's head and pointed to Surzex's left side. The Lucifer nodded with his eyes still closed and revealed a little girl who was standing with and smiled next to the man. "Sochi, she's Rias Gremory, your godfather's little sister." Naruto gazed immediately at the girl, her crimson red hair swaying calmly with the wind. "I'm Naruto Bael Phenex, it's a pleasure to meet you." Despite the first impression, the grin on the boy's face faded immediately, and he gave her a deep and polite bow. The introduction surprised Rias, who couldn't help but open her mouth in pure astonishment. Such a little boy was also a gentleman? However, her brain eventually made her react, and she introduced herself. "You already know my name," she said with a sly smile. Looking more closely, Naruto noticed her full appearance. She was a girl of his same age with light skin, blue-green eyes and a petite figure. Her most distinctive feature was her long, crimson-red thigh-length hair, with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also had loose bangs covering her forehead, and side bangs framing her face. Kushina pushed Naruto forward suddenly, her hands moving from his head to his shoulders. "Why don't you two go to play? I'm sure you will get along very well." As she expected from her son, he nodded and motioned Rias to walk with him to the little garden the park had. Grinning, she followed him closely, her little arms were behind her back. When both children were far enough, Surzex's expression adopted a sad look. "Kushina, are you really planning to escape with your son?" he asked in a low tone. His voice was deep, and had nothing more than seriousness. "I'm completely against it. I've the same right to train my nephew." Kushina kept her eyes on her son. The calm vision of that day was giving her a bit of nostalgia. "I can't allow Minato to be the one to spend part of his exile with Naruto. I mean, he'll train him in the Phoenix's abilities, but he's part of the Bael clan too. He needs me." Surzex sighed in resignation, his blue eyes looking into the purple sky. "You know that your brother won't be pleased with your decision. He can barely stand with Naruto living as part of the clan, but he'd be furious if you leave this dimension to join Minato." The woman retorted with an unladylike snort, her smirk pointing directly at her friend. "It's true that I love my brother, but Minato and Naruto are more important than him," she assured. "I don't really care if the council will prohibit me from returning here. The only thing I want is to train my son properly. He needs to be more strong than any devil, fallen angel, or even angels." The Gremory looked at Kushina with widened eyes. His own shock prevented him from talking anymore. Why she wanted to get that far in training Naruto-tan? Maybe because she was a proud devil, and also one of the most powerful. Surzex didn't really know about her purposes, but if she was really going with her son, then he wouldn't be able to change her mind. The legend of the Bael child. "So, are you really part from the Phenex clan?" Naruto kept his sight on the beautiful dandelions. His smile wavered slightly with the question. "I am. My father is Minato Phenex. Rias widened her eyes at that. She was 4 years old like him, but the only thing she knew was that Kushina Bael was his mother. Maybe her brother omitted that the exiled devil was his father. Oh, sorry if I was rude. I didn't meant to be like that, I was just curious. Don't worry, I'll be seeing him next year, so it doesn't really matter, Naruto explained, diverting his eyes to look at the sky. There was a moment of silence, then none of them dared to break. However, Rias's curiosity quickly forced her mouth to open. And it's true that your wings are of fire? What about immortality? And dash. Naruto chuckled at her final stammering, Rias's cheeks blushing slightly at her own excitement. Well, I'm not supposed to reveal my powers to other devils until dash. Come on. Please? The interruption came abruptly and he stopped with his mouth half opened. The boy noticed the pleading tone she used, as well as how big and beautiful her eyes turned to be. Her hands were intertwined, and she was very close of his face. Looking to both sides, Naruto sighed. Okay. I guess I won't have any trouble if you promise to keep the secret. Rias grinned with excitement. I promise it! Now, would you show me your wings, Naruto-san? The Phoenix raised an eyebrow as he stared into Rias's eyes. I never said I'd do something like that. In fact, the only one who had seen my wings is Kazan, Naruto explained, making the little girl pout in disappointment. But I do have the manipulation of fire like other members of the Phoenix clan. There are, however, a lot of powers that my mum wants to test if I have them inside me. One of them, and most important, is the power of destruction that both my and your mother have. How do you know that? Right then Rias's face showed only pure surprise by what he said. Naruto laughed and scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Kazan told me that a few months ago, when we were having dinner with Lord Bael. There was a pinch of despise in his voice, and the way his expression turned grim in an instant showed exactly that. But that's great! I mean, she said that a child of a Bael's member can have that ability too. Rias giggled at his enthusiasm. Anasama said exactly the same than Kushina-sama. It's weird, but I'd really want to try that power if I've got the chance. Even if you could, you won't be as powerful as me. I mean, I'll train so hard that even the 4 great Satans will be nothing against me. Both of them looked at each other, their eyes filling with a defiant brightness. Oh really? How about we place a bet? Rias proposed, looking over her shoulder to see if her brother was listening. If you're more powerful than me, then I'll marry you. On the contrary, if my own strength obliterates you, then you'll be part of my peerage. Naruto, for the first time of the day, had to shut his mouth up to think about it. The conditions weren't so bad, apart from the fact that he was too young and didn't know what marrying a woman was. But if Rias took that as a condition, then it had to be something good, right? Grinning, the boys stood up suddenly and helped the little girl to stand as well. Then, looking at each other, they shake their hands. Deal. When I come back from my exile, we'll have a battle to show our abilities. Rias nodded in agreement. The way of dealing it wasn't really clever, but she was fine with it. Oh, Naruto. You're going to regret this. And he did. 1 year later, Naruto and his mother left the Devil's Dimension and traveled to Minato's new home. They found a strange world, filled with strange yet powerful humans who were called Shinobis. It took Naruto Bael Phenex almost 11 years to complete his exile. But after living in that place, he wasn't the same anymore. The Fourth Shinobi World War, a conflict that showed to be most devastating than the others 3 in just one day. It began with Obito Uchiha, named himself as Madara, who appeared in the Kage's first meeting. He asked them to deliver him the 2 Bija left, but the Kages rejected his demand and the Uchiha declared the war. With the large forces that Akatsuki had as well as the Edo Tensei from Kabuto Yakushi, the war should have lasted at least 2 months. It would be the most logical fact, since the Allied Shinobi forces had an army composed of approximately 80,000 shinobi and samurai who agreed to fight by their side. So, their sides were pretty leveled. However, it didn't last more than 1 day. The hero who saved the world was Naruto Bael Phenex, son of Minato Phenex and Kushina Bael. Though, the only thing he used was pure taijutsu and Toad Senjutsu. How he managed to avoid showing his heritage was a mystery that only his parents knew. In fact, Kushina had prohibited him to reveal either his wings, fire and wind abilities, or his newly manifested power of destruction. Due to that, their clan's training was a secret very well hidden. His father trained him with his Phoenix's skills, and also he taught him a few things of the ninja world. But during their training, Minato explained to Naruto that he wouldn't be able to use his chakra as any other ninja since devils used magic instead of ki. There wasn't much difference between both powers, but being born with the affinity of magic was a weakness in that dimension. He had limitations, as well as his father, and he had to rely more in hand-to-hand combat than ninjutsu. On the other hand, Kushina Bael refused to learn anything from her husband. Not that she had any problem with him, but she was more powerful than any shinobi of that world. However, she didn't participate in the war because it wasn't her homeworld. It did has problems, though Kushina just went to it to be with her son. In that moment, however, Naruto was standing next to the lifeless corpse of Obito Uchiha. The sight was hopeless, since the majority of the shinobi forces had been killed in action. So, it's finally over, and Naruto? The voice of his best friend, Sasuke Uchiha, came from behind him. The Phoenix sighed in resignation before answering. Don't tell me that you're going to fight me like we planned a few years ago. If I'm honest, I'm sick of fighting. So am I, Sasuke retorted, his throat expelling a dry snort. I'm not planning on kicking your ass, dope. At least not anymore. There was a sudden shout of joy, which caused both teens to turn to the source of the sound. Their eyes narrowed at the sight of Sakura Haruno and Kakashi Hatake walking at them, the entire shinobi forces going right behind them. Sasuke-kun! Naruto! Surprisingly, even the blonde rolled his eyes at the sight of the entire army approaching. Not that he hated her, but he was really tired to pretend being happy and hyperactive. In the end, it didn't really matter. Team, where's the Kyuubi? I know the other Bija had escaped when I broke their prison, but he said he wanted to talk with me. Sasuke tilted his head to the side, revealing his Mangekyo Sharingan to the blonde. With a smirk, he answered. He's trapped in the Kamuyu's dimension, as well as your parents. They asked me to teleport you there, that they had something really important to tell you. Naruto nodded quickly, his arms crossing over his chest in relief. At least he will find some peace in that place. His parents might had something to speak with him, but he preferred that instead of being praised by the allied shinobi forces. Do it! In an instant, the young demon disappeared in a vortex of Sasuke. Then, just a few seconds after, Kakashi and Sakura arrived. Sasuke-kun! You did it! You defeated Obito! The Uchiha remained silent. His expression was filled with curiosity and realization. Naruto assisted you, didn't he? We saw him standing next to Obito. Sasuke looked at Kakashi out of the corner of his eyes. He killed Obito Uchiha, not me. In fact, Sakura, Naruto is the one you should thank for doing it. Both members of Team 7 gasped at that statement, Sakura widening her green eyes with surprise. But where's he now? We won't see Naruto again, but he turned out to be an interesting person, Sasuke explained as he looked at the horizon with a nostalgic smile. Indeed, he was really interesting. The legend of the Bael child. This is where you had been all this time. I must admit, I wasn't expecting any favor from the Uchiha. Minato sighed, leaning his back against the wall of the place. Nor do I. But you have to understand, he was the only one who could give us extreme privacy. The people of this world can't learn that we are devils. Naruto looked at his father in disbelief, his own blue eyes focusing in Minato's own. The old leader of the Phoenix clan resembled a lot of his son's appearance, and even their eyes were the same. The only differences were the form of their faces and how they were dressed in the moment. What do you mean by? But he interrupted himself as he noticed who was behind his Tusan. A soft laugh escaped from the lips. Oh, I get it. So the Kyuubi is here too. Indeed, the most powerful Bijou was sitting beside his father. It was magnificent, with a scary look that showed lots of aggression and power. That fox was a demon, a devil kitsune, who had much more chakra than him. Kurama is here because I called him. The voice of Kushina broke the two Phenex out of their daze. In a second, the beautiful figure of Kushina Bael emerged from behind the smirking Kyuubi. She was smiling, her violet eyes looking at Naruto with deep care. "Cousin, how do you know him?" Kushina looked at Kurama for a second, before giggling slightly. "It's a long story, Sochi, and you two will have much time to talk about that." Naruto narrowed his eyes in confusion. "Wait. Are you planning to turn me into Kyuubi's Jinchuriki?" "Nope, that won't be necessary," Minato announced, attracting the attention of the others. "You see, you've the age and power to be categorized as a high-level devil. In the standards of both clans, Phenex and Bael, you are now able to have a peerage." There was a momentary silence, followed by a gasp of shock. Obviously, Naruto Bael Phenex was astonished. Of course that he was strong, his mother told him that, but having a peerage? That was unexpected, but also a nice surprise. I don't know what to say." Minato gazed at his wife and both shared a momentary smile, then it was gone. "Consider it like our last gift for you, since you'll be returning home alone." The previous gratitude in Naruto's face was replaced by confusion and sadness. His mouth opened to ask the question that was really obvious, but his mind forced the answer to respond his doubts. And instead of asking why, he swallowed hard. "I understand. I guess that the Kyuubi will be part of my peerage, right?" "That's right, kid, but I'd prefer that you call me by my name." This time, the eyes of the boy diverted to Kurama, who talked for the first time of the day. "Even so, I wasn't expecting that kind of petition from Kushina-sama. But due to the fact that you're her son, I'd be honored if you allow me to be your knight." Naruto looked at his parents with confusion, the previous sadness wavered a bit. "I don't have any objections with the Kurama being the first member of my peerage. And I can understand why him, and why Toussaint has to stay here. But why you two, cousin?" Kushina sighed, intertwining her hand with Minato's own. "That's because I'm used to this," she explained. "In fact, I like this place. After living here for so many years, my way of seeing it had changed. But I guess I don't want Minato-kun to be alone here too." Thanks, the irony on Minato's tone passed unnoticed by his wife, who smiled at him and kissed his cheek. Blushing, his lips curled into a sly smile. "You know, Naruto, my younger brother has 3 sons and 1 daughter. Due to that, the next heir is Razor Phenex, your cousin." "I see, then I'll have strong rivals to fight for the right of leading our clan," Naruto noted, putting a hand under his chin. "I'd have to investigate about Serord when I get there. He could have turned into a powerful devil." Kushina took the opportunity to nod in agreement, her own curiosity being fueled by the fact that they were separated from that dimension. "That's a good idea, considering that he's my brother's only son. However, don't forget about Rias, she may be a good challenge too." Naruto contemplated what his mother said for a few seconds, ignoring that his father made a hand seal. In an instant, a black box appeared on his hands. "Here, take it. These are the devil pieces, which consists in a set of 15 chess pieces. It's really simple, just take a particular piece and use it with the target you want it to turn part of your peerage. However, this only works if the other person wants it too." The blonde nodded at his father's explanation, his hands moving out to grab the strange box. Opening it, he found exactly what his dad said he would. "Kurama, mind if I try this on you?" "No, go ahead," Kurama answered, placing his head on the ground. The devil teen smiled at his parents, happy with the responsibility they gave to him. Receiving a smile from both of them, he walked to the Kyuubi with the box on his hands. It didn't take him more than a few seconds to reach the bijou, and his blue eyes stared directly into red pool of calm power. "From now on," Naruto announced, grabbing the knight piece from inside the box. "You'll be part of my peerage, Kurama." The fox closed his eyes just in the same moment the piece touched his head. Immediately, there was a dark and red glow, and it began to enter inside his body. Kyuubi found himself changing inside the light. His body shrinked and his fur began to disappear. Soon enough, the change was complete. In the previous place where a giant kitsune had been, there was now a young man standing with a hand in his pocket. He had short, fair red hair, which was messy and gave him a wild look. As well as Naruto, The QB had 6 whisker marks on his face but more pronounced. Also, he had 2 fox ears on top of his head and the same eyes from before. He was dressed with a red and elegant kimono, whose obi was black and had a blue katana on the right side of his hip. On his shoes, however, he was using a pair of blue sandals. However, his appearance wasn't the only thing that had changed. Immediately, when he saw Naruto, he walked until he was in front of him. "Naruto-sama." His voice was really strong, yet it possessed pure respect. But suddenly, he knelt in one knee. "I am at your service. As your knight, I swear to fight by your side until you die." Naruto raised an eyebrow. The confusion attempted to take his mind. But luckily for him, it didn't. "Thanks, I guess," he said, turning his head to the left to face his amused parents. "Did that piece wash his mind or something like that?" "On the very contrary, son. Kurama-san has just realized how powerful you're due to the influence of the night piece. He's acting by pure will and nothing else," Minato explained, inwardly smirking. Kushina let Minato's hand go to walk to her son. The QB was still kneeling in one knee and Naruto held the box in his hands. "Naruto," her voice broke both of them out of their daze, forcing them to look at her. "There's one thing I have to do before you go." Naruto nodded, noticing that his father was grinning sheepishly. "Take care of yourself, Naruto, and try to stick to your Phoenix surname. If anybody learns that you're from the Bael clan, then Lord Bael might find you before his time," the man said, scratching the back of his head. With this piece, Kushina grabbed the only king piece and held it in front of Naruto's face. "You'll become a leader, my son." Soon, the piece was inside of Naruto's body, but he was nowhere to be seen. The legend of the Bael child. "Ah, I want to touch some nice tits." Matsuda raised his fist into the air. "Amen for that." Motohama, instead of being excited by the idea, just adjusted his glasses. "Don't say that, it makes me feel stupid." There was a calm silence after his sentence, that nobody wanted to break. The pervert trio, as the others called them, were lying in the grass that was located in front of the gym class. Even if their first desire consisted on looking at the bodies of the girls, they found that eventually the sky had better aspect. At least, that was what Hayate Issei thought. "Matsuda, Motohama." Just as he spoke, Hayato forced his body to sit on the grass. "Why did we enroll ourselves in this school?" His friends did the same than him, sitting on the grass. "This used to be a girls' school that only last year turned into co-ed," Matsuda explained, looking at some women running through the field with a smirk. "That means that we can be popular and have lots of good pay adventures." In other words, Issei and his friends finally stood up. Every one of them adopted a different position. "A harem!" Motohama took the chance to finally speak. "Or that was our objective, but we haven't got a girlfriend yet, and it's our second spring here." "That's true," Hayate said as the three of them followed with their eyes the movement of the assets of the girls running near them. "But we still have a dash!" Several screams of excitement interrupted him. His sight revealed that Kiba Yuto was approaching to a group of fangirls. Kiba was one of the most desired young men in Koa Academy. He had short blonde hair, gray eyes, and a mole under his left eye. He wore the boys' school uniform, which consisted of a black blazer with white accents over a white, long-sleeved dress shirt with a black ribbon on the collar, matching black pants, and brown dress shoes. He seemed to possess a shining aura around his face that attracted all the attention from the girls of the school. "Yeah, handsome my ass," Issei thought as he saw with despise as 3 girls ran to the Yuto guy. "Kiba-kun!" The shout of one of them made him stop. Turning around, he faced his admirers with a smile. "Would you like to come with us to the karaoke?" Kiba's teeth shined with the sunlight, his eyes looking at the new girl who asked him on a date. "Gomen, but now I was heading to..." Something interrupted him from saying any other word. His smile vanished in just an instant. Issei, his friends, and the girls looked at him in confusion and slowly followed his line of vision. What everybody saw next caused different reactions on them. In the distance, a few meters from Kiba, 2 young men dressed in the school uniform were walking at them. One was a blonde teen who ported an air of elegance and distinction. His hair was spiky and he had 6 whisker marks on his face. The second was very different from the first, with short red hair and the more pronounced whisker marks on his masculine face. As well as the blonde guy, he wore the uniform of the school, but his appearance was more rude. However, for the girls' opinion, both of them were really handsome. Their cheeks blushed as they continued to walk at them, their hearts pounded fast in their chests. Issei, Matsuda and Motohama were a different case. Hayato was slightly surprised of their appearance, but he also shared his friend's jealousy. Two new rivals for them. Kiba was nervous, the power that both devils emanate was incredible. And the red-headed guy seemed to hide his true appearance under some sort of illusion, which made him look normal. He didn't know who they were, but he was going to let the Bucho to find that out. Walking past the girls, Yuto stopped in front of both students. The closer impression revealed to him that they were new students. "Hey, could you please move out of the way? We haven't finished our inspection of the school." The deep stare of the red-headed made him grow uncomfortable. However, the only thing he wanted was to know their names. Then, he would invite them to his club to talk with his king. "Sorry, I just wanted to welcome you to this academy. I noticed that you must be new, don't you?" The blonde guy raised an eyebrow at Kiba's level of intelligence, such that skill in a devil was dangerous. "Maybe. Who are you?" Kiba blinked at what the redhead said, then he put a hand on his forehead for a second. "Please forgive my manners. My name is Kiba Yuto, Class 2C. He gave them a deep bow, expecting them to introduce themselves. However, they didn't. "And you are?" "I'm Kurama, and he's Naruto. We are in Class 2C as well." For some reason that Kiba unnoticed, he avoided giving any surname. But why? What are they reasons? He thought, smiling calmly at them. "It's a pleasure," Kiba affirmed, trying to get the value to propose what he was going to offer to them. "I'm part of the Occult Research Club. Why don't you two come after classes? My president wants to know both of you." Naruto nodded with his head. His lips didn't spoke a single word to the young devil. "We might go. But now, we'll have to keep touring this place." Kiba bowed slightly, and apologized to them before leaving. The three girls, previously ignored, stood a few meters from both guys. However, the Phoenix and his knight walked forward, not wanting to waste a second more. Their eyes eventually took notice of the nervous girls looking at them, and Naruto couldn't help but smile. "Ladies." For the first time, Issei and his friends listened to his voice. They had been listening the entire conversation with pure jealousy. Their minds were beginning to think that they were another rivals. However, neither Naruto nor Kurama stopped there and continued their walking. Suddenly, Naruto's eyes diverted to where Hayato was, and he stopped immediately. Of course, the fact that Issei had a sacred gear caught both his and Kurama's attention. "Look, which do you think his sacred gear is?" The Kyuubi gazed at the perverted trio with amusement. "Interesting, boosted gear. I didn't really expect it to found it attached to a pervert." Naruto smiled slightly, nodding at the boy before resuming his walk. "Kurama, you can't judge a book just by the front." The Kyuubi quickly found the logic behind his king's words and made a slight bow. "In fact, I think that his apparent perversion reminds me of Jiraiya-sensei." Issei looked at both students until they were out of his sight. Scowling, he turned to his friends and nodded, realizing that it was time to peep in the girls' dresser room. Of course, he was confused with the blonde's attitude, but he paid no mind. Apes were first. The legend of the Bael clan. Hayato Issei fell to the ground as his friends escaped from the imminent danger. "Damn! Matsuda, Moto dash!" His mouth stopped midway, his eyes widening at the hopeless sight he was having. He was alone, and soon he was surrounded by a group of girls carrying shurnai on their hands. "You again!" The teen, still sitting on the ground, swallowed sonorously, his head sweating from the nerves and fear he was having right then. Wait! But the girls were too annoyed and angry to be clement. With only one scream, Issei shut his eyes and waited for the first impact to come. A sound was heard after a second, but the pain never appeared. Confused, the pervert opened his eyes and found that the redhead from before had stopped the impact with his hand. His strength was noticeable, and even a crack could be heard in the silence produced by the shock of the girls. Naruto suddenly appeared from Kurama's right side, putting a hand on the shurnai that his knight was holding. Such a high level of violence is not good, don't you think? The entire group blushed when they noticed how handsome both of them were, but they didn't answer instantly. I know that you all are a group of highly intelligent ladies, why don't you forgive my friend? This will be the last time he do something like that, trust me. His polite speech caught the girls off guard, and they couldn't help but fell into his charms. The girl from before stopped from applying strength to the Shurnai, and Kurama let it escape from his hands. Okay, but if we see you again, not even he will save you, pervert. Issei nodded nervously, sighing in relief when all the girls were gone. He looked with more confusion at his saviors, noticing that they were indeed gazing at him with seriousness. Were they going to kick his ass? You! What's your name? Kurama pointed at him, his eyes narrowing at the look of the brown-haired guy. The boy was an average student, nothing remarkable about his messy short brown hair and amber eyes. He wore the same outfit that other students, but he got the jacket opened and showed a red t-shirt under it. Issei Haida, he answered nervously. The way he stood up so quickly showed the same than the way he talked. Come with us, Issei, Naruto said, motioning him to go with them. At first, the user of the sacred gear was nervous, but soon he was following both through the academy. Naruto and Kurama walked through the outskirts, their eyes taking note of the large population of female students in the campus. It wasn't any surprise, because they already knew the story of Ko before enrolling in there. However, their trip only lasted a few minutes. Naruto stopped suddenly in the garden of the Occult Research Club, leaning his back against the wall next to a stairs. Kurama leaned against a tree, his arms crossed over his chest, and he closed his eyes in thoughts. He was not so close to give them privacy, since Naruto had to explain the boy everything about devils. Hey, thanks for saving me, Issei finally said, scratching the back of his head. The Phoenix teen looked at him with a sly smile, his blue eyes seemed to pierce through his soul. I'm sorry if… Naruto raised his hand in the air, stopping his new objective from saying anything else. You don't need to. In fact, I saved you because you remind me of a master I had when I was younger. Really? He was like me? Issei asked with some hope. If that guy, who seemed pretty cool, had a sensei similar to him, then he had an opportunity to form a harem. The blonde chuckled slightly before answering. Indeed he was. Perverts are very similar to each other, you know. There was deception in Haida's expression, one that suddenly hit him like a bullet. I see, for some reason that a guy like Naruto had saved him just to laugh of him made him feel disappointed and sad. Don't worry. I do found perverts really funny, Naruto assured with a grin. The deception in Issei's face grew deeper. Haida silently sighed in defeat, but when he was going to ask the blonde a question, his eyes took notice of something red. It was hair, which belonged to a red-haired beautiful girl looking at them from a window. She appeared to be a young woman with light skin, blue-green eyes, and a buxom figure. She was looking directly at Naruto, her big eyes filled with curiosity and interest. Her face showed no emotion, but the blonde noticed what she was experiencing. Kurama! I think we came to the right place. Naruto-sama, is there anything wrong? The voice of his knight broke him out of his daze, his mind returned to the present. The Phoenix looked at the red-headed teen before turning his sight to the ground. I'm sorry, I think I got lost on the past, Naruto said as they both continued to their destination. I was expecting to find Rias in this academy, but the day before I left returned to my mind. Kurama felt sympathy for his king. Let me guess, she cried. The blonde nodded absently, his eyes losing the poor concentration they had. He remembered every tear she dropped for him that day 11 years ago, and now he was feeling really bad for her. Well, I don't really know what she felt, but I assume that being a girl of 5 years old had to be difficult. Though, she must be happy to see you again. That's what bothers me. 1 year before my departure, we placed a bet. Now, we are destined to fight each other to decide who is more stronger, Naruto explained, shaking his head slowly at the thought of fighting his old friend. Well, I guess I shouldn't have to worry about things like that, don't you think? His knight snorted loudly. His laugh echoed through the empty hall of the academy. Agreed. For now, let's focus on the present. After saying that, both fell into a comfortable silence. The fact was that they were heading to their first class, and where they will join that strange boy Kiba Yuto since they were in the same classroom. However, the previous events made Naruto grow a bit nervous. Rias, who looked at him when he and Issei were talking, just disappeared in the darkness of her club without giving him any word or expression. Though, what really annoyed Kurama was that the other two perverts came back just in that moment and glared furiously at his king. Then, they forced the Hayate guy to leave with them. But luckily, Naruto had managed to put him a seal of track. That way, if any other being approached at him, he'd know. In the end, Naruto had to wait more to talk with Issei about devils. It was imperative for him, since he planned to make him part of his peerage as the only pawn. He knew that, due to boosted gear, he'll have to use all of his pawn pieces to turn Hayate into a demon. Here we are, Naruto-sama. Will we really have to study? The Phoenix couldn't help but chuckle at his knight's question, his lips curling into a sly grin. Does it really matter? He asked just as he knocked at the door of the Class 2C. Come in. Both of them heard the voice of the male teacher and nodded at each other. Putting a smile on his face, Naruto opened the door and entered the classroom. Kurama walked silently behind him. Excuse me, we're the new students. There was realization on the man's face, lips curling into a gentle smile. Ah, yes. Class, these are going to be your new classmates, the young man announced, turning his head from his class to the two teenagers. Please introduce yourselves to them. The Kyuubi nodded at his new sensei, his red eyes looking with curiosity at everybody in the classroom. He noticed the blush on the girls' faces, and even the scowl from some males. However, he also realized that Kiba Yuto was looking at them with a fake smile. My name's is Kurama Uzumaki. And that's all he said. Everyone blinked in confusion, not only for the short introduction but also for his constant seriousness. Naruto, however, was pleased with the false surname he gave to everyone. Nobody noticed it, of course, and even Kiba seemed to be in thoughts. I'm Naruto Namikaze. I like training, reading books, and helping people. After being forced to fight for many years, I started to dislike conflicts and battles. I prefer a more peaceful solution if possible. His charismatic speech caught immediately the attention of the blushed girls who sighed with tenderness. Finally, I think that perverts are really funny. That last part ruined the ambit of admiration that the class had of him. Not that the girls started to look at him with despise or something like that, but they did get more confused. Even so, he didn't look like a pervert. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I hope that you'll get to know each other in no time. Trust me, this school is really friendly. Kurama resisted the urge to snort and instead bowed his head slightly. Naruto nodded at the man, heading for a chair between the other girls. When he sat down, the teacher had to start the class to prevent the girls from talking to the new guy. The Kyuubi, however, looked around and found a chair next to Kiba. With a smirk, he sat down and grinned mischievously at the blonde teen. That devil had fallen completely into their trap, and for now Yuto didn't know their real identities. The legend of the Bael child. That man. The whisper didn't pass unnoticed for the other girl, who turned her head to her bucho. Excuse me? Rias crossed her arms under her chest, her eyes stared at the chessboard. The one who was looking at the window. Akino Himejima blinked in confusion, the realization hit her almost immediately. He's from the Class 2B. I'm sure that Hayate Issei was his name. What about him? I'm not talking about him, Begremry said, putting a hand under her chin. She had to plan her next movement pretty well if she wanted to win. Didn't you notice who was there? The beautiful queen nodded slowly, her eyes diverting from her king to the window. Hi. He must be a new student, since I never saw him before, Akino explained. Though, I must admit his power caught my attention. Not to mention that he's really handsome. Bucho, is he an acquaintance of yours? Rias silently bit her lower lip with expectation. That man, the boy who had been her best friend in the past, had returned. And his level seemed to be really high. His name is Naruto Bael Phenex, the son of Minato Phenex and Kushina Bael. Akino gasped in shock at what she heard, her eyes widening slightly for a moment. But almost immediately, a smirk appeared on his lips. "Oh? That's something really interesting. Definitely he has my total attention now," the queen assured, giggling at some thoughts that she was having then. But thanks to her distraction, Rias turned the game to her favor. And checkmate. Era? Ignoring her queen's analysis of her defeat, she stood up from the couch. Then, approaching to a chair, she began to undress herself. "How many matches did I win up to now?" Akino looked at Rias stoically. The sight of her being naked did nothing to disturb her calmness. "No idea. I can't wait to play another one," Begremry said, removing her underwear. "Please tell Kiba to bring him during lunch. I really want to talk with Naruto again." After saying that, the Bucho entered in the shower and closed the curtains. The hot water quickly stroked her naked figure, and her hands stirred her body with lust. She blushed at the memory of promising marriage to Naruto Phenex, though she didn't regret anything. Rias always fulfilled her promises. In the room, Akino was a bit taken aback with her words, her mischievous mind playing against her. Naruto Bael Phenex, she thought as a sly smirk appeared on her lips. Truly, he had caught her attention. But however, they failed in noticing that Kurama was with Naruto. Oh well, more surprises for later. The Legend of the Bael Child. Lunch came really fast for Naruto, who didn't pay any attention to the class. However, the teacher noticed his lack of interest and began to ask him some questions about his lessons. Unfortunately for the professor, the boy answered all of them perfectly. His lack of attention was complemented with his intelligence. However, either he nor Kurama could eat their food in peace. In the moment the teacher left the room, the entire classroom surrounded them. Of course, all of the students that stood near them were girls. Naruto closed his bento, his eyes diverted from his knight to the group of girls in front of him. The Kyuubi was standing next to his king, but he was a bit annoyed with the attention they were attracting to themselves. "Please, can we let the questions for another time? We want to eat our lunches in private." Despite what the Kyuubi was feeling, he managed to keep his calm. It was difficult though, since every girl has the same question for them, and that was, "Naruto-sama, Kurama-sama, do any of you have Jiger girlfriend?" Perhaps, in that moment, the worst choice would have been smile at them and saying that they didn't had. Though, that's exactly what Naruto did. "No. We don't have a girlfriend." Every girl whispered in joy, their cheeks blushing with excitement. They had a chance. Would you go out in a dash? Something interrupted the girl in point from saying something else. Kiba Yuto was the interruption, who stood in front of Naruto's desk. The blonde devil was sitting with his arms crossed over his chest, but his blue eyes were pointed in Kiba's smiling face. "Yuto-san. May I help you?" "Sorry to interrupt your lunch, but Rias Bucho wants to talk with you." Now, there wasn't anger or a pinch of order in his voice. However, Naruto couldn't help but raise an eyebrow with interest. However, the entire class began to whisper about what Kiba said. "Rias Wani-sama desiring to talk with Naruto-sama and Kurama-sama? Is she planning to make a harem? Kawaii." Kurama got tired of listening to the group of girls, and sighed in resignation, his eyes looking at his king for approval. He really wanted to leave that room, if not, he'd turn into a emo like Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto, on the other hand, was really looking forward to see his old friend again. He had seen her a few hours ago, and the sight resulted to be more than he expected. She had really become a beautiful girl. "Alright, we'll go with you, Yuto-san. Rias-chan doesn't deserve to be waiting." The Legend of the Bael Child. The Phoenix and his knight walked through the door. Their distance to Kiba showed their common sense of precaution. There was a stair next to a short hall, which ended in a lonely door. Following the young devil, both teens walked behind him as they ascended the stair. Kiba finished the ascension first, opening the main door in the second floor. Then, he stepped inside and stood next to the entrance. That way, he allowed a complete sight of the room for the visitors. When they reached the door, Kiba smiled. "Please come in." Naruto silently nodded at the blonde boy as he and Kurama entered the club room. It was rather simple, apart from the magic seal occupying the majority of the room. It had a pair of couches and a single desk facing the door. There was someone sitting in one of the couches. Her petite figure stood out from the room. She was a girl of around 15 years of age with white hair and hazel eyes. At the front, her hair had 2 long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back had a short bob cut. She also wore a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair along with the Academy girls' school uniform, without the shoulder cape. Kurama noticed that she was different from the other girls they met before, since she didn't blush or showed an expression of excitement when they entered. Also, he saw the yokan she was eating and his mouth watered in desire. It was something natural though, since neither he nor Naruto ate their lunches. "Kaneko, they are Naruto Namikaze and Kurama Uzumaki," Kiba introduced, seeing that no one of them wanted to say anything. The girl bowed her head slightly in apprehension, her hazel eyes looking at Kurama first, and then at the king. "Nice to meet you." There was a pinch of curiosity on her face that both noticed immediately. However, it was gone in a second. Naruto then looked at the desk in front of him, but his eyes couldn't find Rias anywhere. Where was she? The Kyuubi, however, put a hand on the boy's shoulder and approached his mouth to his ear. "If anything happens, we'll defeat them, Naruto-sama." Phenex frowned. His own excitement of having the possibility to talk with Rias found itself being replaced with doubts. He really didn't want to fight his old friend if possible. "I hope this isn't a trap," he thought, noticing that his knight was standing next to him. It was a precaution though. If he noticed any sign of threat they would be ready to attack. "So, you've returned after all. I thought you had forgot about me." Naruto immediately smiled as he heard the sweet yet mature voice of who he interpreted to be the Gremry lady. "Rias-chan." His voice was soft and nostalgic, and he couldn't help but turn around to face her. "How could I? I mean, we're still friends, right?" His eyes quickly took the sight of his old friend. Her appearance had changed drastically from when they were young, and she had grown in every aspect of her body and face. Indeed, she was like a goddess. She smiled with a flinch of mystery in her face, her legs moving towards the young phoenix. "Perhaps. That depends of your reasons to lie to Kiba-kun and Kaneko-chan." "What do you mean by lie?" Kiba suddenly asked, his body sitting next to Kaneko. Naruto looked at Rias first, her lips curled into a sly smirk. "You're the same than 11 years ago." He sighed, nodding quickly to Kurama. "All right, we did lie to you both. My true name is Naruto Bael Phenex." Kiba widened his eyes at what he said, and Kaneko dropped the sweets she was eating. Yudo already knew that both of them were powerful, but a member from the Phoenix clan? That was more surprising. But Kurama only smirked in satisfaction. He never got tired of seeing the reaction of the devils about his king's legacy. "Heh. I'm just Kurama, formerly known as the Kyuubi no Yoko, a kitsune. Naruto-sama is my king." This time, even Rias widened her eyes at what he said. Kurama's smirk grew wider, but he didn't show his true form. His king didn't allow him to. On the other hand, the Gremry's peerage were shocked. Both Kaneko and Kiba astonished of what they heard from the red-headed man. "Era? I'm interrupting something?" The voice of her queen broke Rias out of her daze. She blinked in an effort to comprehend what he had just said, but her mind quickly forced her to react. "Naruto-kun, Kurama-sen, she's Akino Himejima. My queen." Both teens looked at the new member of the club that entered in the room. Akino was a beautiful girl and had a buxom figure like Rias, but her frieze seemed to be more bigger. She had very long black hair tied in a ponytail and violet eyes. Like most of the girls at the academy, she wore the customary Academy girls' school uniform, along with black knee-high socks. "It's a pleasure, Himejima-san," Naruto said, bowing at the same time that Kurama did. Akino smirked slyly, her hands holding a tray with empty cups and a jug with tea. Era, call me Akino. And, the pleasure is mine, Naruto-kun." The way of talking to his king made Kurama scowl slightly at her, but he didn't say anything. The Phoenix, however, chuckled at her enthusiasm. Soon, the entire group was sitting on the couches. Kaneko next to Kiba and Akino next to Naruto. Kurama remained on his feet. Rias sat behind her desk. "Do you want some sugar with your tea, Naruto-kun?" Akino suddenly asked, putting one spoonful of sugar when the boy raised one finger. Smiling, she gave him the cup. Thanks, he took a sip of the hot liquid, and smiled when it entered through his throat. It's delicious. You'd be a good wife, Akino-san. Kurama snorted silently, his eyes closing in thought as he could feel the stares of Kaneko and Kiba on him. The beautiful girl put her hands on her cheeks and smiled in joy. Arigato! However, Rias took the opportunity to clear her throat. Well, Naruto-kun, how was your life? Did you learn something useful from the ninjas? All the stares were now on the Phoenix, the eyes looking at him with pure curiosity and interest. In fact, he took another sip from his tea and smiled. Two-sen taught me how to use my chakra in ninjutsu, and I also learned a lot of techniques. My master Jiraiya introduced me to the powerful toads in the Mount Mayaboku. Rias Gremory smiled with curiosity. Interesting. And they taught you senjutsu, right? Kurama took the opportunity to speak. Yeah, and he's really powerful now. You'll have to be careful if you're planning to fight him. Everyone went silent at that. Even Naruto and his old friend seemed a bit nervous for that. The blonde looked at the Gremory beauty. Her face showed real concern. However, his lips curled into a calm smile. It's okay, Rias-chan, we don't have to do that. I mean, we can just forget it. We were kids after all and dash. No. A promise is a promise, Rias interrupted, standing from her chair to look better at him. And the way we sealed it before you left is a concrete proof of our determination. Surprisingly, Naruto blushed at that. Perhaps, the most surprised, was his knight. His king, blushing? What did they do in the past to put him so uncomfortable? You're right, but please let's not talk about that now. There will be time to fight La Dash. Again, no. This has to be settled today. Rias, once again, interrupted him. But first I want you to talk with me, in private. The Phoenix slowly nodded at the girl, letting the cup of tea on the table and standing up. Kurama attempted to follow him, but he shook his head. I'll be safe. Just keep your eyes on them. Kurama nodded, his smirk growing wider as he leaned his back against the door Naruto had just crossed. If they wanted to enter without his king's permission, they will have to pass over his dead body. The Legend of the Bael Child. Both friends talked for hours. The stories of Naruto were getting more and more interesting. Oh really? And what did you do to save him? Naruto grinned, his hand scratched the back of his head. I didn't save him. In fact, I'd begun to shout that a pervert was peeping in the sauna. Then, a lot of women came screaming and Jiraiya-sensei ran for his life. The girl giggled loudly. The thought of an old man running from a group of girls was really funny. You're so cruel, haha. Don't misunderstand me, perverts are hilarious. But I was tired of him delaying my training to investigate for his next book, he explained, letting his mind wander through the old memory. She smiled in joy, her body moving more closer to Naruto until her chest was pressed on his chest. I've missed you so much. Rias-chan, what are you doing? Why you are really close, the Phoenix said, noticing how big her eyes seemed to be. However, the Gremory didn't move an inch from him. Instead, her arms went behind his back and put him in a tight hug. Oh Naruto-kun, don't you remember we shared something more intimate than this? You shouldn't feel uncomfortable. She put her head on his chest and closed her eyes in nostalgia. Naruto sighed in defeat, moving his arms to return the hug. That was different. And I was different too, he explained, stroking his long crimson hair. After seeing so much death, my mind forced me to be more mature. Rias-chan, I'm still your friend, but I don't think that what happened in the past should affect you. Rias suddenly pulled out from the hug. Her body moved to the window of the empty room. You don't get, don't you? It's not what we did when we were young, it's about the bet. I always fulfill my promises no matter the cost. The Phoenix crossed his arms over his chest, his look turned worried for a reason. Rias, I'm not also more older, but my power has increased too. I don't want to fight you, but I'm not willing to let you win that bet, he assured, noticing that the sunlight highlighted her figure. I've a peerage now, and I'll lose everything if you win. She giggled again, but it hid a tone of malice. Then I'm sorry, but we are going to fight. And it will be tonight, you won't escape from me. Naruto rubbed his chin in thoughts, his mind noticing that he had no excuse to prolong it. He didn't want to fight, but Rias didn't let him any choice. Just in that moment, the seal that he had put on Issei activated itself. The Phoenix's hand glowed and the mark of the Bael clan appeared on his palm. Damn! Kurama! Immediately, the QB entered inside the room. His hands were curled into fists, his energy began to flare due to the apparent threat. Naruto-sama, what's wrong? Issei has made contact with a fallen angel, we'll have to go. The blonde explained as he looked at Rias with a sneaky smile. Sorry Rias-chan, but our fight will have to wait. Rias opened her mouth to discuss, but both Naruto and Kurama disappeared in a black and blue circle. Just in that moment, Akino and the others entered in the empty room. Bucho? What happened? They have escaped. The legend of the Bael child. It had passed some time since Yuma Amano confessed to Issei, who was more than astonished when that happened. They had been out on a date. Issei showed a nervous side and cared deeply for her. He did everything he could to make the date perfect, and in the end, he thought she was happy with his efforts. Oh boy, he was really wrong. In the end of their day, the girl took him to a fountain and stopped in front of him. Her smile was calm and lovely, or so it appeared to be. But, however, when Issei thought she was going to kiss him, she only asked if he could die for her. At that moment, her true appearance was revealed to him. A pair of black wings with big feathers emerged from her back, her face turned grim and malefic. Hayato was astonished. His pure shock prevented him from stopping the incoming attack of light the girl sent against him. A spear of light pierced his body, lots of blood poured from the wound. Sorry, but you were a threat for us. The voice of Yuma hit his numb ears. If you want to hold a grudge for someone, then hate the god who placed that sacred gear inside your body. Issei heard what she said and silently gritted his teeth with pain. He caught the sound of the step getting away from him, and he noticed that he was dying alone in that park. Raising a hand in front of his face, he saw his own blood adorning it. It's red, like her, he thought, his mind losing consciousness slowly. Damn man, if I knew I was going to die, at least I'd had touched her tits. Haha, even in the end I like to be a pervert. His vision suddenly became blurry. His eyes began to close and his body relaxing on the cool ground. If I had the chance, I'd like to be the boyfriend of Rias Gremory. However, he wasn't going to die that night. Someone appeared in the darkness next to him. His eyes couldn't register who it was. But it possessed blonde hair. Sorry Issei, but Rias won't be your savior. I'll keep you alive, but you are going to serve me. Despite the situation, Hayato couldn't help but feel surprised as he recognized the voice. And Naruto-san? And with those words, his mind finally shut down. Naruto sighed as he sat at the table. His hands grabbed the pair of chopsticks. Kurama, how many days had passed? The Kyuubi appeared from the kitchen, his red kimono swaying slightly with each movement. Quite a few. Why? Is it time for us to return? His king didn't answer and instead he began to eat his breakfast. It had passed many days since Issei reincarnated as a devil, and neither Naruto nor Kurama assisted to the academy. They had many reasons for doing that, but one of them was to avoid contact with Rias and her peerage. Why? Because now she would be looking for the blonde to fight him. Not that he was scared or worried, but if he were to fight, he wanted his new pawn to be present. Many would question his choices, though he was using his intelligence. When a human reincarnated as a devil, the first changes appear during the first days. For that purpose, Issei would be feeling different during nights, more powerful, faster, and even he would have the ability to see clearly in dark ambience. Due to that, Naruto knew that it would be easier to believe if Hayato witnessed a real fight. And experiencing changes in his body was a plus concerning to further explanations. Perhaps. But if I lose, what would you do? That question took Kurama off guard, but he managed to answer it quickly. Naruto-sama, I've full faith in you. Even if you were to lose, I'd stay by your side. The Phoenix smiled and nodded. That would mean joining Rias' peerage. Kurama didn't retort. His body stood stoically as he watched how his king ate his homemade breakfast. Well, I guess she won't be easy to defeat. After all, she's part of the Bael clan as well. Kyubi lowered his head slightly. A snort came out from his throat. Please! Are you really afraid of Gremry's powers? You're a phoenix. You've the power of destruction within you. I'm absolutely sure that she won't be as strong as you. You misunderstand me. Naruto started to speak, standing from his chair. I'm not scared for a simple fight or by how powerful she might be. The fact is that I don't want to force her to marry me if I win. Now Kurama forced his mouth to close, his lips trembling with repentance. His body lowered deeply in a bow. Forgive me, Naruto-sama. Naruto chuckled slightly, his hands moving to grab his car's key. However, when he was midway, he stopped. Nah. We're not going to school today, he assured, getting a nod from his knight. We'll just watch him. I've the feeling that something is going to happen to him. The Legend of the Bael Child. Humph. I see, so you have no master, the fallen angel said, standing in front of Issei with his wings extended. Then there won't be any problem if I kill you. Beings like you shouldn't exist. Hayato opened his mouth to ask, but no words got out. Instead, his eyes widened when the enemy raised his hand and a spear of yellow light appeared on his palm. A loud sound of something being activated could be heard then, and Issei fell to the ground as he saw the smirk on the man's lips. How has that happened? And why? Since that strange dream when Naruto appeared and spoke to him, he had been feeling different. During nights, his own speed was amazing, and even after running entire hours he wasn't even agitated. However, his magnificent new abilities wavered during the day. He felt terribly weak when exposed to sunlight, and not even his mind could think clearly. Issei didn't realize why he was experimenting those changes, but he thought it was part of his growth. And there he was, sitting on the ground gazing at the freak who was going to end his life with a spear of light. Of course he didn't know that. In fact, he knew nothing about the world he was now part of. The same happened with Yuma-chan. Is this my end? Issei thought, closing his eyes as he noticed that the man's arm was moving backwards. Heh. I knew this wasn't a dream. Just as his mind stopped his flow of thoughts, a loud thud hit his ears. Surprisingly, after a few seconds, he felt no pain. With his eyes still closed, he moved his hands to touch the spear before it disappeared from his wound, but there was nothing. Shocked, he finally opened his eyes and gasped at the sight. In front of him was a blonde teen with spiky hair. His right hand held the golden spear with ease. Looking more closely, Issei noticed that the weapon was burning his palm. A thin column of smoke emerged from the contact between the teen's hand and the spear. However, after a few seconds, he destroyed the spear just by clenching it. Don't you dare touch him, the teen said, gritting his teeth with noticeable pain. Who the fuck are you? The fallen angel asked as he widened his eyes at the previous show of power. Blonde hair, blue eyes, your power tells much about you, but at the same time it doesn't say anything. Naruto snorted loudly, his laugh full of despise. Of course you don't know about me. My name is Naruto Bael Phenex. Just as he said that, both Issei and the man gasped in shock, Hayato because of the realization of seeing his savior there. The fallen angel, however, felt that his body began to tremble under the new revelation. What? B but M, my superior said that you and your parents were dead. Who said that they are dead? Naruto said, smirking at the sight of his nervous opponent. I've just returned to this place, and I found a stupid fallen angel messing with my pawn. Do you really wish to fight against a devil? The fallen angel gasped in terror. The son of Minato Phenex and Kushina Bael, two of the most powerful demons in the underworld, was standing in front of him. His power was something to be considered as terrifying, and he couldn't help but smile nervously. Fufufu, this is really interesting. I've never expected to find a high-level demon around this place. The man made a deep bow as he continued to introduce himself. My name's Danasige, I hope we don't met each other again. After saying that, his large black wings were extended and he flew into the darkness of the night. One thought was on his mind, and that repeated itself as he escaped from the place. I've to inform this to Azazel. Back to both devils, Issei couldn't find the valor to stand up. The previous revelations showed that they were related with the changes he was experiencing. Who was that man with the wings on his back? Was he really a fallen angel? Was he scared with Naruto's apparent surname? Why they thought he and his parents were dead? And was the blonde a powerful guy? Many questions for someone who had been just reincarnated as a devil, but it was comprehensible though. Hayate's mind had just begun to believe that the other day with Yuma wasn't a dream like he thought. Issei. "Aya hi!" the boy shouted as he stood in a blur, noticing that Naruto was looking at him now. The blonde held his right wrist with his other hand. "Are you okay?" Issei gazed at him with disbelief, his sight taking notice of the new aspect of him. Unlike before when he saw him with the academy's uniform, Naruto was now wearing a black jacket which was opened and showed a white shirt under it. The sleeves were pulled up just to below his elbows, and a necklace with a green gem could be seen around his neck. He also wore dark blue jeans, a brown belt, and a pair of black shoes. However, when he blinked, Hayate realized that he was expecting an answer and nodded. "Naruto-san, why that guy wanted to kill me? Is this a dream like the one in where Yuma-chan killed me?" The phoenix gritted his teeth with pain. The previous effect had not passed yet. "Sorry if this disappoints you, but no, this is real like the air we breathe. I've saved you in both occasions, the first time when Yuma Amano attacked you." "What? How do you know her?" Issei asked in shock, his memories of that fateful day returning to his mind. "Everybody who saw Yuma-chan say that she doesn't exist. I had many proof, like a photo of her in my phone and her number. But they weren't there anymore." A sound of steps came from behind Naruto, and Hayate couldn't help but fear the worst. However, the new person showed to be Kurama. "Oh, she exists, that's for sure," he assured as he tossed a photography of both of them to Issei. "Her real name is Rainier, and is a fallen angel." Issei looked in shock as he saw him and Rainier laughing together. "This is..." Suddenly, a loud thud could be heard. Hayate stopped midway, his mouth closed quickly as his eyes lost every sign of consciousness. In a second, he was lying on the ground. Era, I think I've exceeded in my strength." Kurama growled as he noticed the figure of the beautiful Queen of Rias standing a few meters from them, her buxom body highlighted under the moonlight. She was now wearing a traditional Miko attire, consisting of a white haori with red accents, a red hakama, and a pair of zora with white tabi. "What are you doing here? Don't you see that we were in a meeting?" Unfortunately for him, Akino seemed to be ignoring him completely. He looks really good," she thought as her violet eyes were looking directly into the phoenix's own. "Oh! Your hand has been hurt!" she suddenly exclaimed, putting a hand on her mouth to cover her sly smirk. "Akino-san, I don't really understand why Rias has sent you to spy me. And at least you should have waited until I finished explaining everything to Issei," the teen said, frowning at the look of lust in her face. The queen smirked at him. "Oh? Who said that Bicho sent me? I was just looking for you, Naruto-kun." Kurama felt more annoyed as he heard that, but what she did after made both blush. The Kyuubi in embarrassment and Naruto, well, let's say he was embarrassed too. The queen had walked to him. Her hands immediately took Naruto's wounded palm and put it on her left wrist. He could feel the extremely soft skin thanks to Akino's movements, and his palm was now under the cleavage of the Miko attire she was wearing. Flushing, Naruto felt an immediately relief coming to his wound. "Why? I'm a phoenix. That means that I only needed more time to pour one of my tears on my wound." Hinajime giggled lustfully for a second, licking her lower lip with her tongue. "Era! I don't know, my body acted on his own," she said, almost giggling again as she saw Naruto's nervous blush. "But you really seem tired from the previous fight. Maybe you need more of my powers to heal fully." The Kyuubi, recovering from the previous surprise, snorted loudly, his attempts to call the attention again ignored by Akino. "Search another excuse to fuck with Naruto-sama, because he's in perfect condition. Besides, he doesn't need you or Rias to heal his body. His own power is enough." Naruto grew more uncomfortable at the mention of having sex with Akino, but he didn't complain about it either. He wasn't a pervert. but he did like the feeling of her tits. However, he needed to act fast. Issei was unconscious and he'd have to carry him to his home. Akino-san, I really need to take Issei to his room. I promise I'll visit Rias-chan tomorrow, but for now dash. He was interrupted, however, when the girl pushed her fist on his chest. Naruto's hand was still over her skin, but he couldn't stop the incoming erection that was beginning to rise. Era, thinking in Bucho already? Do you really want to marry her? She asked as her other hand moved over his left cheek. Or maybe you're afraid that you won't be as good as she expects in bed. I can help you with that if you want. Her hot breath hit his ear. The face of Akino was really close to his left cheek. No! I've to stop this before I lost control, he thought, closing his eyes to concentrate his chakra. In a moment, he wasn't near her anymore. He had disappeared from her sight, but she found out that his new position was next to Issei. Oh? Is that one of your special abilities? Kurama grinned with satisfaction. It's a basic ninjutsu. But I assure you that his arsenal is more than enough to defeat your king. Akino, instead of feeling disappointed or shocked, smirked. Era! Looks like Naruto-kun is a box of surprises, she said, looking at the phoenix with renewed interest. Oh well, I've to go now. But don't be late tomorrow, Bucho will be waiting for you. With a wink, the beautiful woman summoned a magic circle and disappeared through it. Naruto sighed in relief, his eyes diverting to his knight. Phew, that was a close one. Anyway, why did you have to lie? We both know that my chakra level is lower than a simple chunin. The Kyuubi nodded seriously. Hi, but don't you remember what the ninja said about the art of deception? There was an expression of realization in Naruto's face who couldn't help but smile in surprise. Very smart, good, we're taking Issei to his home. I've seen it before so it won't cost us a lot of time to find it. Kurama nodded, tossing Issei behind his back. In a second, the blonde summoned a black and blue circle under his feet. One blink, and both were gone. The legend of the Bael child. Wake up or I'll kill you. Wake up, or you'll be cut into small pieces. Issei lazily extended his hand and turned off his Tsundere alarm. His mind slowly begun to remember the previous events. He thought that it was a dream, a very real one. However, this time, he hasn't died in it thanks to Naruto and Kurama appearing to talk with him about Yuma Amano. Maybe that was a sign of something to come? That could be an answer, but why both teens were in his dream then? Yawning, Hayate sat on his bed and rubbed his closed eyes. Then, standing up, he went to the door but he stopped midway as a voice called him from behind. Hey, open your eyes, pawn! Immediately Issei froze up. His eyes shot open and his heart thudded once. Turning around, he gasped in shock. There, with his back leaned against the window of the room, was the red-headed teen. WWH what? K. Kurama-san! The Kyuubi snorted silently. HM! Finally! I thought I was going to die of boredom here. Hayate didn't move an inch, his mind trying to interpret why that guy was in his room. And no way! ARYUGG-? He began asking, but he stopped midway as he noticed the look of pure hate that Kurama was sending to him. Don't be stupid, kid! I've just arrived an hour ago. Now, do me a favor and shut up! Issei immediately nodded, his mouth almost let a sigh out in relief. Good. Listen, what happened yesterday wasn't a dream. That fallen angel, the imminent danger, everything was real. Issei gasped once again, his eyes widened in shock. It was? But I remember that we were talking and then I lost consciousness. Kurama recognized the tone of disbelief in the boy's tone and sighed. He wanted proof, then he'll have some. We were explaining to you that Yuma Amano was in fact a fallen angel called Rainier who wanted to destroy you. I showed you a picture of your first date, and when Naruto-sama was going to tell you the truth, someone hit you in your neck. Why yeah! That's exactly what I remember, Hayate exclaimed, as he began to believe in Kurama's word. But if fallen angels truly exists, then what are you both? The Kyuubi smirked, his sharp teeth gave him a more feral expression. After classes, wait for us outside the Occult Research Club. Naruto-sama will give you real proof of his powers, Kurama said, beginning to accumulate his own magic. But if you still don't believe me, then look closely at what I'm going to do. Luckily, you'll be working for your king before midnight. Issei was going to ask what he was supposed to see, but almost in 2 seconds a black and blue circle with strange symbols appeared under Kurama. Instantly, the redhead disappeared in a blink of the eye. Obviously, a demonstration of something like that made his jaw drop to the ground. What the fuck? The legend of the Bael child. The night was about to come, the sunset was already disappearing in the horizon. Both peerages were reunited in the Occult Research Club, Naruto and both members of his peerage sitting on one of the couches. Rias own were in the opposite one, looking at them with mystery and curiosity. Well, just Rias was sitting on the couch. Her devil stood behind her. Naruto, will you escape again? The Gremry beauty asked, pouting slightly. I must admit I felt disappointed when you left the other day. Kurama looked first at his king and then to the only pawn in the Phoenix's peerage. Issei was astonished and, after the corresponding introductions, he couldn't turn his eyes away from Rias. He had seen her before, but she was more beautiful in person. No, but before we've our predestined fight, I'd like to ask the question that my new pawn had asked to Kurama today. Hayata's body immediately trembled at the sight of everyone staring at him. He avoided their eyes and scratched the back of his head. It's not that I don't believe you all, but if fallen angels exist, what kind of being are you? The first one in retort, however, was the Kyuubi itself. I'll go straight to the point, I don't want to waste more time, he assured, standing up from his seat. We're devils. Just as he said that, he, Kiba, Akino and Kaneko made a pair of wings to appear from their backs. Issei widened his eyes in shock, his pupils noticing the black color in all of them. Kurama, however, had a pair of red different wings that resembled the appearance of a dragon. You unbelievable! We'll discuss this in a later meeting, Issei. Is that clear? Naruto asked, not moving his sight from Rias. She was sitting stoically, her blue-green eyes looking at her opponent with seriousness. Hayata nodded quickly, his mind now clearly believing what they had just said. He needed more answers, but it seemed that something big was going on between the blonde and Rias Gremry. Hi! Naruto-senpai! There were no difference between their ages, but the Phoenix paid no mind. You know, Rias, there has been a reason for me sticking to 2 surnames. Rias raised an eyebrow in curiosity. I noticed it. And I know that having no recognition of any of your clans forces you to act like that. Exactly, Naruto replied, standing from his seat. Well, let's have this conversation later. We both have a fight to solve. The Gremry nodded, standing as well. With a movement of her hand, she motioned Naruto's peerage to follow her. Kiba, Akino and Kaneko walking alongside her. Issei, however, was confused. What's going on with those two? He thought, following them silently. Is Naruto-senpai going to have a battle against Rias? But he's a guy. He can't hit a girl. That would be rude. The girls should be treated with care, their body must be touched, not damaged. There was a blush on his cheeks as the group exited the Occult Research Club, Kurama being the only one who noticed it. With a thick mark on his forehead, he hit Issei's head. Ouch! Kurama-san? Why did you dash? Shut up and calm your mind, pervert! Kurama interrupted. His will managed to hit a smirk when he noticed the expression of anger in Issei's face. You've to pay total attention of what you're going to see. Hayata nodded and mumbled something under his breath. Stupid demon, he thought, rubbing his head calmly. The group eventually exited the building. Their legs took them to the forest's entrance next to the club. It was a perfect site for their fight, since nothing was going to interrupt them. Both fighters stood quite a long distance from each other, approximately 50 meters. Naruto's and Rias' peerages stood away from them, the two groups standing a few meters from each other. That way, in case of any sign of threat, they would be able to counterattack perfectly. Issei remained close to Kurama, his confusion only being highlighted by the sight of both opponents looking at each other with seriousness. Let's begin. Who would you like to be the judge for this? Rias asked, totally expecting that Naruto would choose his own knight. Surprisingly, he didn't. Kiba Yuto. He'll be fair enough. Of course that a choice like that caused confusion and surprise in the Gremry's peerage, but she was the first to recover from her shock. Kiba, could you? Slowly nodding, the blonde knight moved forward and stopped a few meters from both fighters. He looked at his bucho first, but then his sight stopped in Naruto. Okay, this will be a fight without any limitations. You can use any ability you have to defeat your opponent, but you can't kill each other. This ends when someone loses consciousness or surrenders. Kiba explained, gazing at the phoenix for a few seconds. Good. Now extend your wings. Rias did as Kiba said, and a pair of black bat wings appeared from her back. She didn't restrain them and made them look the most intimidating she could. Her wings seemed more darker than the ones from her peerage, and Naruto couldn't help but raise an eyebrow with interest. Those are nice, like any heir from the Gremry clan should have, he assured, passing a hand through his blonde hair. Do you remember when we were young, and you asked me to show you my wings? Well, how to forget your beautiful face pouting like a puppy? Immediately, Rias blushed and diverted her eyes from him. Did he had to remember that occasion in particular? However, her peerage was having different thoughts right then. They all already knew that she and Naruto had been best friends years ago, but she never told the things they used to do. While Kurama only smirked in amusement, Issei blushed as the thought of Rias Gremry pouting like a puppy appeared in his mind. If Naruto did known her from so long, then he was a lucky bastard. In that moment I denied showing them to you, but now I guess I can't escape from that. Naruto looked momentarily at Kurama and Issei and nodded slightly. The Kyuubi returned the gesture and immediately began to channelize his own chakra. Nobody noticed it though, because he was only rising it to prevent being caught in the incoming effect. Witness, the flames of the phoenix! Just as he said that, from behind his back, a pair of black wings emerged mightily. However, what the entire group saw almost in a second made them gasp and tremble of fear. His wings were totally different from any demon, even from those of the Phoenix clan. They were made of fire, true, but it wasn't a common golden flame. Instead, a black and blue color covered them. But was that the fact to be scared of? No, of course not. Apart from the fact that his wings were made of black and blue fire, a loud and terrifying sound appeared with them. It resembled the sound of a bird screaming like it was going to attack a prey. Their size appeared to be slightly bigger than Kurama's own wings, and both the aspect and the loud scream made them something to be afraid of. While Kiba and Issei fell to the ground in fear, Kurama and others managed to remain on their feet. Every one of them had different reactions, being the Kyuubi the less affected by the genjutsu Naruto was putting to his wings. It was rather simple, since it consisted in emanating killing instinct in form of a bird's scream. Now, both the color and size were real since it reflected his true power. What's wrong, Rias-chan? I thought you wanted to see them, Naruto said, smirking widely. The voice of the blonde, however, was all she needed to break out from her daze. And despite being previously shocked, she couldn't help but grin with excitement. Naruto had already dissipated the genjutsu, but his wings remained extended. All in all, they were really impressive. In an act of speed that almost caught Naruto off guard, the girl ran to him with her hands extended. I wonder what she's planning to do. We both know that she doesn't fight in hand-to-hand combat, he thought, just as his body moved to a side to avoid a ball of black fire flying towards him. Rias stopped midway, her body being covered by an aura of a red energy. She was really powerful, he had to admit that, and the power of destruction was her main attack. However, he couldn't afford being touched by them. If he was, then he'll have serious troubles. Her energy seemed to increase, because a black sphere with a red aura emerged from her hands and pointed at Naruto directly. He growled, noticing that she planned to make an attack again. Damn, he thought, jumping to a side to avoid the impact. However, while he was busy staring at Rias, he failed to notice that a second sphere was going at him. Though when he realized it, it was really close to him. This attack seemed more powerful yet slower than the previous one, but it seemed like it were attracting Naruto to it. Jumping in the air, the teen avoided being completely destroyed by the attack, but a powerful light engulfed his body. Covering his eyes with his arms, he couldn't dodge the incoming kick that Rias sent to him, and that made him collide with the ground. Just in the same time he touched the ground, a small crater appeared under him. The Gremry descended from the air to the ground, her smile only growing bigger as she saw the unconscious figure of Naruto Bael Phenex lying in the ground. However, there was something wrong in there. Was he so weak? No, that couldn't be true. Even if her kick was powerful, her strength didn't compare with Kaneko, and the others had felt that Naruto possessed much more power than that. Meanwhile, the others were astonished. Kiba was now on his feet. His legs took him closer to the impact area. Kaneko was impressed with Rias' quick victory, but she also felt a bit disappointed of the blonde display of power. She really thought that he was a powerful demon. Akino, however, was looking at Kurama, who only gestured her with a wide smirk. Issei looked from the QB to Naruto, and then to Kurama again. His eyes didn't believe what he saw before. Hey, relax, kid. This isn't over yet, the redhead said, holding his smirk as he noticed that both Rias and Kiba were looking at his king. But before Hayate could ask, everyone saw that the unconscious figure of Naruto disappeared with a puff of smoke. Rias and the others widened their eyes, Yuto jumping backwards to look at his surroundings in search of the phoenix. However, he didn't find him. Rias turned her head in every direction, her eyes trying to search for the phoenix's figure. Here I am, Rias-chan! The new source of his voice alerted her senses, which forced her to look ahead. There, in the distance, was Naruto with his black and blue wings. However, a new aura of black and blue energy was surrounding his body. His right hand moved in front of his chest, the palm accumulating his power of destruction. There, almost immediately, a sphere of the same color appeared from his extended hand and shot at Rias with incredible speed. How fast! She shouted, protecting her body with her powerful aura. Naruto grinned archly and continued to shot his attacks. His Bael's power was more destructive and faster than the Gremry's own, but also it possessed a bit of his fire natural ability. What's wrong? This is nothing. I'm doing the same that with my wings. And that explained everything. It wasn't his pure power of destruction, because it would be much slower. In fact, Naruto was combining both clans' abilities in one powerful attack that threatened with defeat Rias. However, the only thing she could do in that moment was to protect herself with her natural Gremry's aura. The attacks impacted with the shield, making a loud sound with every collision. And the enormous speed the attacks had prevented her from dodging them or to summon a quick shield. But despite the power he showed to her, his energies quickly depleted and he fell to the ground panting from the exhaustion. Rias dropped to her knees, her hands touching the ground as she tried in vain to recover her breath. Such power was something to be really scared of if they had a rating game. I guess this is a tie, Naruto said, as he continued to tremble on the ground. Rias giggled weakly, her own body charging some power to make a final attack. I'm really sorry, Naruto-kun, she started, standing up in a surprisingly shown of stamina. But I've to do this. Trust me, there's no other way. Saying that, her hands raised in front of her chest as a big black sphere began to materialize. The blonde phoenix laughed shortly, his eyes closed in realization. So, you really want to have me in your peerage, don't you? The Gremry felt a bit of regret of what she was going to do, but she really desired that. Having a demon of that caliber was something that she really aspired to. Not that she didn't want to marry him, in fact, for a moment she hoped that he could win her. That way, she could break her bonds with Riser Phenex. Join me, Naruto-kun, she whispered, throwing her final attack at him. It didn't have the power to kill him, because the only thing she wanted was to make him lose consciousness. However, when the impact hit the body of him, he disappeared again. There's no need to say that everybody was more than shocked when he disappeared again. The new sight of him was hopeless for her. He was flying above the sky. His body didn't show any sign of tiredness. Although his wings once again appeared to be really terrifying, the sphere of black and blue energy that he was holding on his right hand seemed to be more amazing. It was different from the other combination of Phoenix's fire and Bael's power of destruction, and now he was using the last of his chakra and the last ability he had. Demonic Rasengan! That attack was like a sphere of pure energy. A blue color centered it while the black power of destruction covered the outside. It was like a flame of dark fire, but its power was almost touchable. In a blink of her eyes, Naruto charged at her. It happened really fast, and the next thing everyone saw was Naruto sitting on Rias with his Rasengan pretty close to her body. The energy, although it wasn't touching her, was already destroying her clothes and her bra could be now seen. Immediately, Rias' peerage moved at incredible speeds and were instantly surrounding Naruto. Kiba had a sword pointing at his neck, Kaniko's hands were curled into fists, and she was channelizing magic through her body. Finally, Akino formed a red circle behind the blonde phoenix. Her powerful energy attempted to burn him if he made a single wound to her king. Though, the more shocked was the Gremry beauty. Naruto's blue and calm eyes were now porting a great change, and where they were slitted and red, he really looked like an animal, and even his eyebrow were curled with anger. However, instead of finishing her, the blonde retired his energy in a few seconds, his wings disappearing from any sight and his eyes returning to normal. "I think I won," Naruto said calmly. His breath was normal and he possessed no signs of being at least agitated from the previous fight. The three members of Rias' peerage slowly lowered their guard, their attentive eyes taking notice of how the blonde helped her to stand up. Rias, however, couldn't stop looking at him. How powerful was he? And his power of destruction seemed to be more effective than her own. But eventually, her mind forced her head to nod in agreement. "Why you did how?" she started, realizing that every sight was on Naruto. "It doesn't matter, the fact is that you won this fight, and our bet." "Way to go, Naruto-sama! You were incredible!" Kurama assured, gaining a nod from Issei, who had his mouth opened. His mind couldn't comprehend what he had seen, but the Kyuubi had said that that was the power of a true king. Naruto scratched the back of his head with nervousness, the previous seriousness of the fight already being forgotten. "Thanks, but you fought really well too. Rias-chan, the power of destruction is strong in you." Rias ignored his words, however, and continued to stare at him. "You won the bet," she said, moving closer to him until her chest was pressed against his own. "Do you realize what this means?" There was pure admiration on her face, as well as something else that he couldn't notice. However, the repentine proximity forced a blush to appear on his cheeks. "Why, you don't need to do that. I mean, I'm okay with just winning the fight," Naruto assured, trying to convince her of thinking her next decision very carefully. He didn't want to force her to something like marriage. Her arms moved to hug his neck, her big green-blue eyes staring directly into his blue ones. "No. I'm going to be your wife, Naruto Phoenix. From now on, I'll be your fiancé." Naruto and the others widened their eyes in surprise, Akino giggling slyly and Issei cursing silently. "I've been desiring this since you left this place. And tonight, we'll..." Naruto found her lips suddenly moving closer to his. His own heart began to pound really fast inside his chest. Was she really going to kiss him? "We already did this once. But what if she doesn't like it? What if she wants, like Akino-san said, a experienced man?" "Ugh, why am I doubting?" he thought, closing his eyes with nervousness. Both expected for their second kiss to come, but it never did. Himejima, in a surprising act of speed, had stolen Naruto from her arms, and he had his face buried into her huge cleavage. She was still wearing the Miko attire from last night, and he could felt her soft skin again. However, he thought he was going to die from the pleasure sensation. "Naruto-kun! Congratulations!" Akino shouted, smirking at the flushed face of Rias. "What are you doing? He's my fiancé now. You can't do that to him." Rias frowned, approaching quickly to where Naruto and her queen were. Immediately, her arms grabbed Naruto's left arm and buried it between her fists. Naruto took a deep breath when the impulse released him from the soft prison, but flushed when he noticed what Rias was doing. Era! He's not yours until he defeats your former fiancé in a fight," Akino replied teasingly, doing the same that the Gremry did with his other arm. However, in that moment the blonde gasped in surprise and stared at the crimson-haired beauty. "Don't tell me that you're..." "I am, but not for long. I'll tell Hanasama that you'll be my husband and that will break the contract," Rias explained quickly, trying to avoid any further conflict between Naruto and his cousin. Akino, finding that an opportunity to incite Naruto, spoke. But Riser won't be pleased when he finds out that Naruto-kun is going to be your dash. Riser Phenex? He interrupted, looking at Himejima with shock. She nodded with a sneaky smirk. It was happening like she planned. I see, so this is my chance to make my return known in the underworld, he said, noticing that Kurama agreed with that. Issei, however, was more confused than before and remained silent. Okay, listen up. From now on my name is Naruto Phenex, Data Bael, and I'll defeat Riser at any cost. Of course that acclamation surprised everybody. But as they were distracted with Naruto's speech, every one of them failed to notice the figure who had been looking the entire fight with extreme interest. It was a beautiful girl, though her appearance was hidden in the dark of the imminent night. She was standing on the branch of a nearby tree, her eyes delighted with the blonde man who showed a great power to the group of devils reunited below her. He's really interesting. Not to mention handsome, Naya. Maybe I have found my destined mate Naya. Her voice echoed through the empty forest behind her. But in an instant, she wasn't there anymore. Chapter end. Tired of watching censored fanfics? Would you like to watch some very naughty, filled with the lemons fanfics without any censorship? I'm happy to announce that I opened Patreon page for you guys, where you could watch Naruto/Deku, 18+ stories without any censoring. Not only that, you can also see the NSFW images of characters of the fics on my Patreon, which I make by myself. So buy your preferred tier and join our community now. Link is in the description.